Good afternoon, dear colleagues. My name is Jунусова. I'm a teacher of English in Nazarbayev Intellectual School, and I would like to present you cultural diversity identification of students' culture. So today's topic is devoted to grades of 7, 8, 9, 10, but it depends on the difficulties and it depends on the level of activities which you are going to present them. So in today's topic we're going to talk mainly about this. Let's go. So concerning the content of the topics which we're going to cover, we're going to cover objectives, what is diversity, important definitions, what is culture, what is cultural competence, have you been unfairly judged, and cultural jeopardy, and what is linguistic competence. Objective of our lesson, or of our lessons, if you want to devote not only one lesson but 2 or 3 more lessons for this topic, objectives can be: students will identify correct definitions of keywords, demonstrate an understanding of cultural differences in behaviors, attitudes and beliefs, understand that assumptions can lead to stereotypes and unfair judgments about individuals and groups, identify appropriate communication skills and strategies to meet the cultural and linguistic needs of children and families. And by completion of this presentation, students will be able to discuss the strengths and power of diversity. Hope it will help you in your further lessons. So let's go to the what is diversity. First of all, of course, you need to explain kids that what is diversity. The diversity in here, which is explained as skills, abilities or disabilities, racial differences, ethnic differences, age span, social class, regional differences, sexual minority, religion and political affiliation. So it is very difficult to explain kids, for example, political affiliation or regional differences. They can see it themselves, for example, around themselves in their environment. And it is very easy to explain them racial differences, ethnic differences, age span, social class, or sexual minority, and of course religion. It is interestingly difficult to explain children about skill differences and ability or disability differences, but they can easily see this around the world and around their environments. So let's go further. Let's cover demographics. Demographics says that the US and also other countries are becoming an increasingly diverse society. So, which we can see also in our country too. It's becoming also a diverse society. This diversity means that many different cultures operate in our communities and neighborhoods. As you can see in our country, in Kazakhstan, we have like 130 nationalities, ethnic groups, and they're all different and they're all trying to keep their own traditions and culture. So students should know that they are different from each other and they need to respect and value each other's culture and traditions. The youth and families we work with represent an amazing array of diversity and cultural richness. So this should also be mentioned during the lesson. Let's go to the linguistic diversity. It is also taken from US. 14% of the total US population speak a language other than English at home. So we need to know that different languages exist, and 54% of those speak Spanish. So let's go further. Here you can stop and give like food for thought and ask a question: what language do you speak at home? And see what your students give the answer, what kind of answers your students can give to this question. And also the second question can be, how does it influence linguistic diversity? It is interestingly a difficult question and easy question at the same time, because some of them can give the answer easily and some can find that this question is very difficult to answer. So you can see the answers and maybe compare them, and it can be like group work or discussion or pair work. So whatever you prefer can fit this food for thought part. Let's go further. Definitions that assist in establishing common ground. Of course, it is interesting to know different words, and of course, first of all, you need to give them definitions and you need to explain them, because not all the, I don't know, students know all the words here. So for example, racism, sexism, homophobia, and you need to explain them and give examples from different perspectives, and maybe give them opportunity to give example to you. So for example, if you are talking about racism, here's given that the belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. So, and then you can ask a question, who can explain me more about this word? Or for example, if you are talking about the racism, and you can ask 1 or 2 examples from your students. The same can happen with the other words. For example, sexism, if we're continuing on this topic. So the belief in the inherent superiority of one sex or gender over the other, and thereby the right to dominance. And you can give an example, and also you can ask an example from your students. Homophobia, fear or hatred of, aversion to or prejudice or discrimination against people who are homosexual. So it is also can be one example. There also can be 1 example or 2. So you can ask your students to give example, or you can give yourself if you want to. Then we're going to another definition, which is a little bigger than previous definitions. So what is culture? So here you should stop for a little bit and explain them what is culture. And of course, during explanation of this, you need to give food for thought. So the integrated pattern of human behavior that includes thoughts, communication styles, actions, customs, beliefs, values, and institutions of ensure that the needs of the children, youth, and families are met within the context of their culturally informed worldview. So here I showed some pictures in culture forms of our identity, shapes our understanding and perception, and organizes our physical and social interaction. This is all about culture. If you want to, you can add more about that, so your students can also help you to formulate the definition of the culture. So first of all, before giving this definition, you can give them a chance, for 2 or 3 minutes, to think about what is culture, and they can formulate their own definition of the culture, and then you can show them this, and you can find some maybe similarities and differences. Let's go further. Why culture matters? This is interestingly fascinating topic. So why culture matters? Here also the same activity can be done. As I said before, in example of what is culture, you can also ask your students why culture matters, and see what they say to you about that. And in this case, of course, he or she or they will say that it affects parenting and child rearing, communication, body language, perception of time, help-seeking behaviors, help-giving behaviors, stigma, attitudes and beliefs about law, services, social support, kinship support, and what constitutes successful services, use of services and social supports, understanding of government systems, and how we see the world. And see, there are given different examples in how it affects, and interestingly, you can find most, for example, useful for you, most beneficial, and least beneficial. So in here, I would say that parenting and child rearing, communication, body language, perception of time, and how we see the world matters like more than the others. And of course, others also affect, but maybe to other people. But in this situation or in this occasion, it can matter to only you. So you can explain this and stop on that topic also. Let's go further. Coming to understanding of cultural differences, of course it is important to stop on this and think a little bit and maybe reflect on it. Family is defined differently by different cultures. Why? You need to ask them why. And the concept of an exact time is not used or reinforced in some cultures. Why? So you can give from your own culture, from our own culture, and give them examples. So think about different other cultures so they can compare and contrast them. Some cultural groups stress the veneration of ancestors. So do we do that? You can ask them. So eye contact varies by culture also, the same. So is it true or not? Eye contact varies by culture. So is it true for our culture? Is it true for example, different cultures in the like Kazakhstani context? Physical distance during social interactions varies by culture, the same. This kind of questions can be like raised up in a different point from different perspective. Culture greatly influences attitudes about physical contact. How? So you can ask question, how does the culture greatly influence attitudes about the physical contact? Different cultures regulate the display of emotion differently. It is also interestingly to find the answer and from the students you teach. And the last one, some cultures may use different standards for loudness, speed of delivery, silence, attentiveness, and time to respond to another point. And it is very maybe important to know also some cultures in your own classroom. For example, you can ask how do you behave, how do you react, what is your speed of delivery, or how much time do you spend to respond to another's points. And this can be the starting point for you in your classroom. So they can understand that from their own perspective and then go further and think globally. This is interesting activity. Reflect on your own culture. The best way to understand culture is to explore your own. Think about these questions. What holidays and major events do you celebrate? Why? How would it feel if you were told you would no longer be allowed to celebrate those? So this kind of questions can be interestingly answered by your students. And how did growing up and or where you grew up shape your view of the world? think of the differences between your generation and your parents' generation. How does your gender shape your aspiration in life? Who do you admire and why? What characteristics do they have? So these questions also can be answered by your students, or you can give them as a home task so they can think about them and come with the answers next time, so you can spend more time on that and maybe reflect on this question. So these questions can be used as a reflective questions. Also, these questions can be used as the questions like long-term questions, so they can think about them and you can just ask them time to time, like come back to these questions and see what happened or what have changed and see the differences. The strengths of cultural diversity. So this is very important to show them advantages and disadvantages of cultural diversity. In here, I'm going to show the strengths of cultural diversity. So what is the strengths? Offers an environment of inclusion that is supportive and collaborative and increases productivity and loyalty. Very important to know. Promotes equity and equal opportunity. Very important to know. Encourages interaction among diverse people to enrich the educational experience, promote personal growth, and enhance the community. Yes, fosters mutual respect, value differences, and promotes cross-cultural understanding. Of course, it is very important. And prepares community members to live and work in a competitive global economy. First of all, you need to maybe underline or highlight that strengths of the cultural diversity prepares community, not only community members, like to live and work in a competitive global economy, I mean. So it prepares community members to live and work in their own environment. So, and after that, in global economy world. So this can be a main point to mention about. What is cultural competence? Here you should explain that cultural competence is a set of behaviors and attitudes that professionals use to understand their own values and culture, value diversity and cultural difference in their clients, adapt to the culture of the family or community they are serving, and work effectively in cross-cultural situation. This slide can be used for the grades of 10 and 9 because they are more or less prepared to give the answer to the question, and this can be skipped for the grades like 7 and 8. So you can use it or not, it depends on you. But if you're using in grade of 9 and 10, grades 9 and 10, and you are asking what is cultural competence, so you need to be sure that you are explaining very well and they're understanding your explanation. So going further, cultural competence skills include. So here, this can be also an activity to see what your students think about this. So as you've mentioned, here you said and you ask what is cultural competence, yes? And you a little bit explain about that. And after that, in this slide, you can stop on cultural competence skills include, so being aware of your own culture and values, respecting differences, being aware of and working at controlling your own biases and how they affect interactions with others, understanding institutional barriers that prevent some families from accessing resources, building strong cross-cultural team relationships, advocating for individuals who are different from yourself, using effective communication skills across differences, mediating cross-cultural conflicts, being flexible. And you can ask, for example, which one is the most useful? And they can give the answer. For example, you can give your own example. From my own point of view, I could say that being flexible and respecting differences and being aware of your own culture and values is very needed skill. And of course, in this case, they can give different answers, like using effective communication skills across differences and mediating cross-cultural conflicts is the most useful skills which is needed in, for example, globalized worlds. So, see the differences. You can have a lot of different ideas, and you can stretch this activity to another lesson, so you can see the differences in using these cultural competence skills examples, or they can bring their own cultural competence skills examples. So this activity can be used from different perspectives and different points of view. Of course, you need to mention that do not assume. Here's like stop, nota bene. You need to think about it a little bit. So the assumptions we make based on a person's appearance often lead to misjudgments. So you need to explain this. It is very important. We may not hear what youth and families have to say because we have already decided that they have nothing to contribute based on our own biases relating to the person's appearance or situation. This is mostly important. For example, in the relationship between teacher and student, this also can happen. So you can also may not hear what your student said because you have already decided that he or she have nothing to contribute based on your own biases and relating to the person's appearance or situation. So you can start from here. So also you can give example when between two students, when one student may not hear what the other student said because he already decided that she or he has nothing to contribute based on his or her own biases relating to the person's appearance or situation. It is interestingly to know that, interesting to hear from students' point of view what they think about this, and if they think from your own or from their own perspective or not, or they heard something from different people and they're forming their opinion based on that. So this is interesting to know from your students and to hear from them. Next one, our preconceptions may adversely affect our ability to communicate effectively with those who are different from us. It is also interesting to know their opinion. Labeling. We often use labels or categories to describe others. It is always like that, but you can be aware of this. And these labels can be based on such characteristics as clothing, looks, the way a person talks, or the groups to which he or she belongs. And grouping is a natural human inclination. However, people often make assumptions about groups of people they do not even know. For example, they think that emos are a little crazy, and emos can also think that like people are crazy. So this can be the point from which you start your discussion. Or you can say that musicians sometimes seem crazy. They behave crazy and they can be crazy because they spent 8-10 hours doing music. and ordinary people will not and cannot understand, may not understand them. So this is also refers to the third one, when grouping is a natural human inclination. However, people often make assumptions about groups of people they do not even know. So this is the interesting topic to go further with, and you can use it as a discussion topic. Stereotyping. Preconceptions and stereotypes. Preconceptions and stereotypes function as a negative lenses through which people perceive others who look, think, or behave differently. This was taken from Hogan Garcia in 2003. And stereotyping occurs when we use misinformation to judge everyone who belongs to a specific group. As I said before, for example, Emmas, or musicians, or you can say different nationalities. Like different nationalities behave like this because they are so, and you can start explaining why. And because your stereotypes in your mind are drawing this picture for you, and you are not respecting their culture and their behavior because you do not want to spend time and think about and reflect on it. For example, if we're walking through a park late at night and encounter 3 senior citizens wearing fur coats and walking with canes, we may not feel as threatened as if we were met by 3 high school age boys wearing leather jackets. Why is it so? So you can ask them. So because we have made a generalization in each case, so this can be a starting point of our discussion. Stereotypes also evolve out of fear of persons from minority groups. And coming back to the stereotyping again, you can also, for example, ask, what do you think about skinheads in Russia? And what do they think about other Asian people, Asian look-like people, yes? So, and see the difference. You can have a lot of discussion on the stereotyping topic. Go further. And on this slide, you are going to explain how to avoid stereotyping. There are some bullet points which are given, so 5 points which are given how to avoid the stereotyping. But before, you can ask your students how they avoid stereotyping. Do they avoid stereotyping or not? If they not, so why? And if yes, how? So you can ask them. And you can give your own examples. For example, acknowledge the existence of your own preconceptions. Of course, be critical of yourself all the time, everywhere. Do not take for granted any opinion that pops into your head, of course, because if you start taking for granted any opinion that pops into your head, it can be a mess. So work to understand how your preconceptions impact the way you view others. Know your labels and to whom you relegate them. And of course, slow down and get more information before you start talking about these people who you do not know anything about. So if you do not know about skinheads anything, so you need to know, first of all, you need to get as much information as possible. Then after analyzing this, after reflecting on it, you can judge or you can stop judging that, okay? So you can explain that, first of all, your students, when they are seeing these people or meeting these people, they should slow down, get information, or think about this. situation why it is so, and then start behaving, but in proper way. Here you are going to talk about, have you been unfairly judged? So this, think about a situation when someone made a biased judgment about you or acted unfairly towards you because of your age, skin color, clothes you were wearing, your weight, gender, the way you speak, where you live, how much money you have, what you do for a living or work, or some other reasons. How did that make you feel? So you can ask two students to come and ask this question. Think about the situation when someone made a biased judgment about you, and you can listen to their answer, and in this case you can help with your own example. For example, you can say that when I went to I don't know, European country, people who met me, they said that I'm Japanese, not Kazakh. When I started explaining that I'm from Kazakhstan and I'm Kazakh, they said, what is Kazakhstan? Does this country exist? So this kind of interesting feelings, you can explain them. How did that make you feel? Of course I felt embarrassed and offended, but then I realized that maybe these people do not know about this, my country, and they haven't heard about this country before, and I'm the person who can explain them and who can tell them about my country, about my nationality and who we are. So this is the great opportunity. So if you see to this situation from different perspective, it really can change. So this can be explained to students also. If they do not know how to behave in different situations, they also can just stop or slow down, think a little bit, and go with their new opinion, with their new perception, and from different, they can look from different perspective, and they can find the solution to this question. Coming to the cultural competence can help address disparity and disproportionalities. Culturally diverse individuals and communities are overrepresented in the criminal justice system, have less access to and availability of health and mental health services, are less likely to receive needed services, are underrepresented in human services research, are overrepresented in special education classes, are overrepresented in restrictive levels of care, foster care, residential, juvenile detention. So this also, the slide which can be shown to the classes or to the grades as 9 and 10, except 8 and 7, because it is difficult to understand from the first sight, this one, because you need to explain a little bit. So, and it is also age appropriate, as we said before. So this slide age appropriate, so it should be given to like elder classes, not younger. Coming to cultural competence continuum, you can show here that cultural destructiveness, cultural incapacity, cultural blindness, cultural preconception, cultural competence, cultural proficiency, these are all steps of cultural competence continuum. And kids should know, your students really should know these levels, and they need to know where to go and where is the highest level, where is the lowest level, and this is also can be shown to them. Cultural jeopardy, and this is a little game, how to play. So you can give a definition, you can prepare the definition beforehand, or which will make your life easier. A definition will be presented and you must determine the appropriate word from the list. So as you can see, here's given the list: cultural jeopardy, stereotyping, cultural competence, ethnicity, race, culture, diversity. And as I mentioned before, so you must determine the appropriate word from the list and a definition will be presented. You should give the definition to them. For example, selected cultural and sometimes physical characteristics used to classify people into ethnic groups or categories. American ethnic groups include Native Americans, Hispanics, Indian, Latinos, Chinese, African Americans, European Americans, and so on. Which one is it? This is ethnicity. Next. Occurs when we use misinformation to judge everyone who belongs to a specific group. So which one is this? This is stereotyping. One of four groups: white, black, American Indian, and Alaska Native, and an Asian and Pacific Islander. So you are going to wait for the answer. This is race, of course. Next one. The belief in the inherent superiority of one sex, gender, over the other, and thereby the right to dominance. This is sexism. Fear or hatred of aversion or prejudice or discrimination against people who are homosexual. This is, of course, homophobia. We've mentioned about that, so they need to think a little bit and they need to take notes. All the time you are giving information, your students should take notes because it is very important part in your lesson. If it is needed or useful information, they need to take notes. So, and you make sure that they're taking notes and they're using these notes then. The belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race, this is racism. A set of beliefs, behaviors, and interaction patterns that identify a person with a larger social or ethnic group. This is culture. The ability to interact effectively with people of different cultures comprises an awareness of one's own cultural worldview, attitude towards cultural differences, knowledge of different cultural practices, and cross-cultural skills. This is, of course, cultural competence. And, of course, coming to improving communication, you must start, first of all, from your own classroom. How can you improve communication in the classroom? You can ask this question and your students can give the answer to this because they have lots of ideas, and from their ideas you can formulate or you can have the list of things that you should do or they should do to improve the communication in the classroom. Communication and linguistic competence. You must be a good listener all the time, every time. Smile and look interest, of course. Be patient, of course. Listen carefully and do not interrupt. It must be do not here. So, ways to facilitate communication across cultural boundaries. So there are 11 ways how you can facilitate communication across cultural boundaries. You can list of them, or you can just read them, you can give them, they can take notes again. And after, for example, next lesson, you can get them to react on the ways to facilitate communication across cultural boundaries, or you can ask them that they're going to be a pop quiz based on the ways to facilitate communication across cultural boundaries, so they can remember that. So and or learn by heart, and next time you can ask them. Do's of communicating with limited English speakers. They were also limited English speakers before coming to the school, before learning English. So see, make your statements as specific as possible. Do they do that? Let this person see your lips as you speak. Do they do that? Be aware of your assumptions. Do they do that? So you can ask a lot of different questions according to this. Because when they first were the limited English speakers, how did they react on the fluent English speakers? And how do they react now? So you can see the differences. Do's of communicating with limited English speaker, this is continuation. And core elements of cultural and linguistically competent system. This is also can be given to the students of 9th and 10th grade, because they can understand more on that, say they can have like a base when they're going to the high school. So, and it can be helpful for them. Thank you very much. Here you can find references. This is the end of the lesson. Goodbye. Thank you for your attention.